Oh, good. I think we're live. Welcome everyone to BrisJS on this wonderful Monday night. Thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully you'll enjoy the talks tonight. And we'll get straight into the preamble that we do at BrisJS, just to welcome newcomers to what is BrisJS and who helps us keep this thing going? So I will crack straight into that right now. There's a couple of different ways you can be involved in BrisJS live streams, and one of the easiest ones is to join our Slido. Slido is a way that you can go and leave questions, and you can get you can join our polls or feedback. I've been trying to quite regularly give away licenses to things as part of our monthly giveaway there as well. So you should be able to get in on that soon as well. But I'm leaving that up just so that you know, people can see that one and keep going through. I will try and monitor the live chat as well. And so if you've got any questions for our speaker, we'll be able to then relay those through as well. So just bear with me while I leave that on the screen and let people start to join. That's great. Great to see everyone coming in. We already got 18, 20 concurrent viewers. Thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm just going to leave that there for another second. Just trying to get the live chat from YouTube to come through. There we go. Now I can see the live chat. Thanks everyone for bearing with us. Hey, good to see everyone. Everyone there. That's great. Okay. And now I will actually give everyone in the chat this link as well, and then we'll just proceed. Hey, hi Ashley, Yap, Camilo, a whole bunch of folks there. It's great to see you, everyone. That's the link to the Slido if you need it. Okay, let's keep going. We like to do this at all of our in-person events. This is the acknowledgement of country. So while we're all distributed, it's a really great idea to be able to acknowledge the traditional owners of your location and pay respects to its elders past and present, no matter where you are. And so I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of this site on which we broadcast from today, which is the Yugara and Bunjalung people. And I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present. Meetup, if you're not familiar, that's how we've been trying to get in touch with most folks here. Meetup.com is the place to be to get broadcasts and new information about our nights. Unfortunately, we've not had the biggest volunteering for speakers recently, so I've been trying to hold out and sometimes delay by a week to try and get a couple of extra folks in here as well. So if you're not seeing anything come through the meetup, you can always check the GitHub issues, which is something that I'll talk about in a minute as well. Yeah, RSVPs do help me. It's really the point of that slide, just to know exactly who I can reach, and also send out emails when we do go in and make the announcements. Code of conduct, if you're not aware, we do have a code of conduct that's published on brisjs.org. We want to make sure it's a harassment-free experience for everyone. That includes all our online spaces as well. So if you're in GitHub or you're on the chat in YouTube right now, anywhere at all, any of these different communities, anywhere you want to be, we want to make sure that it's a harassment-free experience for everyone. So please do watch out for that, and please do abide by that. It's in red. Submit a talk, everyone. I always go and throw this slide up. The call for presenters is super important. And I know that especially since folks are either returning back to office or doing an extended work from home, I think it's been affecting everyone really differently with this different COVID situation at the moment. So, and it's kind of a, unfortunately, as it is, it's kind of a new normal. So it's something that, that we like to keep encouraging people to connect with us online as well, until we do have the all clear to go and house 120 people in the same kind of room again. So until that day, please do continue to reach out to us and sort of say, hey, the world of JavaScript hasn't stood still. Web development's still a thing. We're doing it every day. If you're interested to reach out, we're happy to support. Like I'll personally help you kind of groom and set up a talk. We're always there to help. There's plenty of other speakers that have been doing this for several times in the past. You can reach out to them and set up a bit of a mentoring thing as well. So if you've never done this before, the community is here to help. I love getting new speakers. I think it's the best thing about BrisJS. It's more accessible than you think. If you're not sure that anyone's going to want to hear what you've got to say, I can guarantee you there's definitely an audience for what you've got to say. You've always got a unique perspective on things that's very valuable to everyone. So please do consider reaching out to us, and popping up a link on our GitHub issues page is really easy. If you've seen any of the tweets that I put out, there's actually a Performer link that you can click, and it fills out a little template for you to submit straight away. So hopefully that makes it easier. If you've got any issues at all, please reach out to me directly. That's what it looks like when it hits the issues page. We kind of tag it with the talk links, and when it's in the upcoming schedule for the next month, and that'll switch over to confirmed once we get the final confirmation through as well. We've got our different socials pages. I try and sort of keep the Twitter active and repost to Facebook. The YouTube is where you are right now, and hopefully we try and do a better job of tying together and keeping all these things in the one place. There's going to be a cleanup on there sometime soon as well. And the BrisJS.org page is still up, but we're getting those permission errors through from meetup. So when I get some time to fix that up, that'll be great. But it still lets you link through to meetup page. It still gathers the present information, and you still got links through the past talks there as well. But you can, as I mentioned, you can hit up our YouTube channel and subscribe to that, and you get notifications of this thing happening as well. So whenever we go live, it kind of lets you know as well, which is fantastic. And something that's also up on there is our job board. We've got a couple of new ones on there as well. If you've got a job to go and post out there, which is super helpful to everyone at this time, just feel free to hit up our GitHub issues, put your job ad in there, and I will mark it if it's with the correct label, and it'll automatically appear on BrisJS.org. And we do have some sponsors, even though we're sort of presenting remotely, and that's PCCW Global, which is the company I work for, and they are hiring. And so we're it's a large networking company that's doing a lot of interesting things in the automated direct connect space through the Console Connect product and the team here in Brisbane. But there's also some positions in a new team that I'm running over distributed, actually. It's remote in Hong Kong and in the Philippines. And we want to also have some folks open here in Brisbane to, work with our Brisbane team, but also then contribute to the wider organization who in a delivery and support capacity. So essentially, we're looking for senior and mid web devs, back end, front end, a bit of full stack, if that would be super advantageous. And so I'm trying to build a new permanent team. It's a very stable company, and if you've got any inquiries at all about the kind of stuff that we're doing, do reach out to me. That link there, that tiny CC, should hopefully take you to our LinkedIn, and you'll be able to see that that particular job ad there for the web dev position. If you're not, it's also on our GitHub, on our BrisJS.org jobs page, just like I mentioned before. So with all that said, the Zoom Pro subscription that we're using to be able to bring our speakers together and auto broadcast to YouTube is sponsored by PCCW Global. So thank you very much. And we've got our giveaway sponsor returning for 4 more months. They're giving away licenses to Wallaby.js and Quokka.js. So thanks so much to Wallaby. They're always keen to get everyone to say hi on their Discord for any questions or anything they're doing. And also congratulations to Rod. Rod submitted the correct answer and a very, very complete answer last month. Thanks very much for participating in that. And you've scored yourself a Wallaby.js license. A Quokka.js license. And that actually should be in your email box already. So hopefully you've got that one through. And if not, please reach out to me. We're doing the same thing again. So at some point, I'm going to extract and create a question out of what Andrei is going to tell us today. And I'm going to put up a spot in our Slido. Oh God, my brain just malfunctioned. To be able to go and submit your answer. And so, we'll pick randomly from all the correct submissions there. And that person will win a Wallaby.js license for this month. Okie dokie. So hiring junior React engineers is the talk by Andrei today. And he's going to be taking you through for the next half hour. And all I can do is really throw over to him. Are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
There you are.
All right, let's make sure we share the right screen. All right.
Welcome, and thank you very much for contributing your talk.
Yep, no problems. Can somebody on the YouTube channel just let me know that they can hear me? Just ping a message, and then, because I don't want to be talking to myself.
Well, I can hear you, so I think you're all good to go.
All right. Rightio. So let's kick this into gear. Hiring junior React developers. Bit of agenda. So I was lucky that I'm the only talker. So it was going to be a 20-minute talk, and I have extended this to a half-an-hour talk, which gives us the ability to talk about a few more things. So basically, I'm going to talk about my job, the fact that our company needs to scale, specifically in the React space, the hiring journey that we took, and then I'm going to talk about the hiring phases. And the last two sections are really going to be for candidates. So based on sort of the last 2 years of attending various meetups such as BrisJS and talking to people who are going, hey, how do we secure that all-important first gig as a developer? So what do? I'm head of systems engineering at Search 365. System engineering is basically a practice of designing reliable systems. So that's the official definitions. A more realistic approach, or explain your job to your mother. This is the slideshow I used to explain my job to my mother. Usually we find a problem or a customer who wants to request. We have a toolbox, which is Azure, because we're a Microsoft partner, and then we have expertise across the team. We kind of combine the two together and we come up with a solution that may look something like that or may look something different. What I do a lot is evaluate the things that we create. So is it complex or complicated? Is it graspable, repeatable, future-proof? I actually did a talk earlier this year on functions as a service, and I used those agendas to actually say why I think functions as a service are a good thing to do. Those of you paying attention are probably going, this is a technical guy. Why is the technical guy doing recruiting? And what could possibly go wrong? So why am I doing this talk? So I've been to a few meetups, and I often get asked, or I hear people discussing, hey, should I be learning React, or should I be learning Vue? Should I be learning Angular? How do we get a first job? Now, that important first job that sets us up, because the majority of the jobs you see advertised, they're not looking for junior people, they're looking for senior people. How do you get the 4 years of experience without having to go for a senior role? There's a lot of good anecdotal advice I hear from a lot of good people. I know there's a lot of recruiters that attend the BrisJS meeting. And what I'm hoping to do is kind of show you the other side, which is I'm a tech guy, I need to fill my team. This is the kind of things I'm looking for. And working in a small company, we got to have a bit more say in the people that come into our company. So let's just do a quick pulse check. Are we still alive? Yep.
We sure are.
Good. Very good. This is the problem with these meetings sometimes. You off you go. So the legal bits. I'm not a recruiter or an HR person, so this stuff that I collected are my personal thoughts. Our hiring process is not universal. This is not every company obeys this hiring process. This is what we found works. And the tips that I give are just those. They're my observations on things I look for and I found sort of either lacking or things that really, really impress me in junior developers. It doesn't mean that every company thinks the same way. Getting a job at FANG. So, you know, some people kind of have these aspirations, and I think they're great aspirations for Amazon, Apple, Google. This talk really talks to a small to medium business in Australia dealing with enterprise customers, but most of the stuff in this talk will not get you a job at Google. If you are interested in getting a job at Google, you know, there's some great resources on getting that. So let's talk about what we do at Search 365. So we develop, so this is from our website. Essentially, we use technologies to enhance the search experience and help people to find the content that they have. So the key bits really is we create solutions that help our customers find their data. We do this for enterprise customers. We develop software on top of capabilities offered by our partners, namely Microsoft. And what we really focus on is the art of possible, using the toolkits that our partners give us and then using platform as a service and creating those solutions. So the reason why we're not a FANG company, or don't classify us as that, is that we don't go and write tools like BERT or those other sort of tools which everybody else uses. We will take those tools and we will customize those tools for a customer's problem. So needing to scale, and this is quite an interesting this is from our side. This is not from a recruiter. This is us as a company. Our June 2020 outlook was we had one new React app, and as a company, we hadn't really dealt with React, but just the way that this particular product we were developing, we were kind of forced into using React by Microsoft. We had a migration project, which was an admin console, and then we had one retrofit project, which basically us taking somebody's React product and tailoring for our needs. At that time, we only had one person confident in React, and we had a lot of aggressive timelines. As a company, what we had to do is kind of evaluate these three things: time, money, and scope. So evaluating those three things, here's the options that we had. We could have hired a contractor to help us with our React stuff. It would have cost us a lot. It would have required time from us because contractors are not just going to come to your business and know exactly what you're doing. And once the contract's finished, you know, they may not come back. And most likely contractors are very good to stick with the scope because they want to give time sheets and they want to get paid. The second option was to outsource, go to somewhere like Philippines, India, go to somewhere like Ukraine, Russia, any of the sort of countries which have big outsource houses. Once again, the time was high. And the other problem we were facing as we looked at it is that if we want to get them outside the box, if we need to do them something, get them to do something that is not React, it's going to basically, they will look at their contract and say, no, you guys need to go and pay us more, or we need to get more people. The third option was to hire one senior developer. Once again, as you can see, what we're doing is evaluating time and scope. And generally with senior developers, you really want them to stick because of their cost. You want them to stick to their area. And the last option that we really chose, and the option that we saw the most future-proof, is to hire several junior developers. We knew that the time bringing up junior developers to scratch was probably the same as all those other people, maybe quicker. But the thing that really drove us to look at junior developers was basically that junior developers tend to happy to take tasks outside of the box. And given that we were going to spend about the same time with other options and we were limited in the scope those other options would bring, we came to the conclusion that the junior developers was a good path. So every time you see this light bulb, that's me just basically giving feedback. So what we learned from that is hiring juniors can be a tactical option for companies. However, if you see a role for a junior developer, be aware that you are probably competing with internal, outsource, and contract options. and help those trying to hire you. So part of the other reason that we want to hire junior developers and hire Australians is a kind of concept of giving back and, breeding local talent, raising local talent. So after 2 years, you could go to your next thing and go, hey, I have got 2 years under my belt with a software development house, and I was doing proper things. So basically make sure that if you do go to those interviews that, as I said, once again, be nice to the people who are giving you a go. They don't have to, as you can probably see, there's plenty of options. And look for companies that have scaling problems. That's usually a good sign, when companies are getting new contracts or they're expanding and things like that. That's usually a good sign that the company may want senior developers, but given the opportunity to rethink that, they may go for a junior developer. Just checking we're still live. Yep.
Sure are.
Okay, good. All right, so the hiring journey for us was basically some initial attempts. So we thought that junior developers, middle of COVID, this should be easy. Let's talk to some universities, let's go to LinkedIn, and let's go, well, obviously meetups weren't happening. What we actually found, which was the yellow, is that we found a software development, software bootcamp house called General Assembly, and I think there's Coder Academy and there's a few other ones. We actually found that the candidates we got from them were really good for us. We then hired 2 developers and sort of giving back. I helped a few other developers from that particular organization with mock interviews and some virtual events. So kind of that entire journey is what I'm trying to summarize over the next few pages. So one of the things I said is, sometimes it's hard to get the message out. So this is a couple of screenshots from my LinkedIn, where I was trying to actually go and get some people, and you can see that basically the way we ended up with General Assembly is Hewan, who's one of the success managers there, basically said, yep, we're interested in getting some candidates. We're not in any way associated or affiliated with General Assembly, and I'm not saying that anybody has to go to General Assembly, but what essentially they do is they take people through all walks of life and run them through a bootcamp. They teach them various tech stacks, and generally at the end of a 12-week period, you get some candidates which know enough about coding to be dangerous, which is good. Typical candidates, so I interviewed about 10 of them, and here's some interesting things that I found from a typical candidate coming from General Assembly. And I'm not saying that they're all bee's knees, but here's some of the things that really sort of came up and sort of impressed me. A lot of the candidates we're talking to, it was a second career. So they had 5 to 6 years or 8 to 10 years in another role. And they were very, very motivated to change into a software role. They wanted to change the software role because they understood it's an opportunity for them to move into the career they want, and they understood things like it's the first rung on the ladder. They tended to articulate a clear passion for technology, and they tend to be able to tell a story how technology solved the problem for them, how they started investing in learning coding and things like that. They tend to be late 20s to 30s, had React skills, Postgres and Ruby as well. We weren't really interested in those two. Knew Git well enough and know enough about the agile processes to be able to talk through the ceremonies. So these were the kind of typical candidates for us as a business that we actually found quite a happy hunting ground with. So some more insights. Finding candidates can be just as hard for employers. So sometimes employers think that, there's this pool of great candidates, and the candidates think, hey, there's this great people must be looking for juniors. There is sometimes a disconnect, so you can try different things. As an employer, what we want is a happy hunting ground, which means that, and one of the things that working with General Assembly has helped us, is word of mouth spreads around. We did get a few other good developers come and talk to us. Meetups were great for this sort of thing, but then COVID hit, and as you guys probably know, we're all remote now. The next two are not really me having a go, but one of the things I have found difficult with meetups is actually finding really, really good candidates. And the reason why, and this is what I put down, this is once again, me not bagging anyone, but just my personal feedback on it. People weren't showing passion for programming or passion at all. So people were coming up to me and going, what do you do? Instead of going, hey, how would you do this? Or, hey, it engaged me. You know, as a senior technical person, what I found difficult is sometimes I wasn't getting, and especially going to these meetups for networking and to grow your career potential thing, bring your best, you know, talk to somebody, because if you fire passion in somebody as potentially a recruiter, potentially a technical senior person that has a large contact network, they may do the work for you. So, you know, I can count the number of times I've had, you know, sort of been involved or dragged into talks about React versus this. I never get dragged into talks about, hey, I think this React thing might be a great idea, or I have a passion for stock markets. How should I do this with React, or whatever else you have? So that's what I mean by bring your passion, because overall, if you're a junior developer, what you're going to probably sell more than anything else is your passion. And try to expand and be part of a group that is that happy hunting ground. It's not the same for every company, but you know, whether it's having sort of, I know at Atlassian, for example, and some of those other big companies used to have open Friday policies where you could bring friends and you could talk with other developers. Kind of just start thinking about how you can get into those areas where people talk about developers, because you'd be surprised at how many times companies want developers, but don't necessarily go through the normal seek channels. Hopefully that kind of brought that there. So once we've got 5 or 6 candidates, we wanted to go and take them through the interview process. Our interview process probably was slightly different, but maybe the same as a lot of them. We placed a lot of emphasis on what I would call pre-work. We culled a lot of candidates out via the GitHub profiles and LinkedIn. We then did the culture fit interview, because for us, Citrix65 has always worked remotely, even pre-COVID. So for us, it was very important to find people who have very good culture, very good communicators, self-motivated, don't necessarily need that office environment to inspire them, and that's us as a company. We then gave them a coding challenge and the final interview with the CEO. So instead of doing things, you know, I've seen other companies give you a coding test even before you get the culture fit. What we did is we did a lot of pre-work culling, and then we did the culture fit to confirm that the people that we're looking for were the people that are going to fit in. And then we used the coding challenge as a way of doing all of the coding testing and doing all the problem solving variations. So we try to pack as many things into the coding challenge, because overall we thought that we'll be paying you to code. We can evaluate, because you know we've got fairly sort of good understanding of people we look for. We can evaluate the way you talk through your code, the way you demonstrate your code, and what you get done much quicker than trying to make you do, for example, a like a hacker rank or something like that. Because once again, you could get a friend to do your hacker rank for you, and then when it comes to coding, you could be in Google the whole time. So the code challenge also gives us a really good way of actually seeing if you wrote the code and how well you know your code. And you can actually tell the difference between people who write their own code, the way they move around, they know where every single bit is, versus people who might have got somebody else to help them. So the pre-work, we really did focus on the pre-work because we wanted to only interview 5 to 6 people. We don't have the luxury of doing half-an-hour interviews. So we wanted to really differentiate good candidates for our team. And the way our team works is that we're really looking for what I call more mature candidates, still juniors, but people who kind of can get on. And that's just our team by themselves. Our team tends to kind of not suffer fools as much. We tend to have very, very bright people on our team and senior level. So what we want to do is make sure that these new developers that are coming in, augmenting our team, could kind of click, which is why we spend a lot more time on pre-work. As I said, once again, we looked through the CV, the LinkedIn, and the GitHub. And what I'm going to do is just show you some of in sort of development, you have this concept of code smells. So for me, these are sort of what I would call the code smells on LinkedIn. So the first thing is good titles and sort of other things. A good employment history is good. I do like people who put what they do in the roles, because it gives me kind of an idea where you're at. Are you a technical person? Are you a business analyst? Are you a coder? And it also just shows me that, we're not going to have to teach you how to write an email. GitHub or Google. The thing I like to see about GitHubs is people pinning their projects, because I did go and actually look at the code in the projects. I downloaded the code in the projects and actually ran it. The other thing I was looking at is these squares here, how many times people were committing and things like that. please don't fill your GitHub with other people's forks and no commits. I've seen people do that. It tends to be the first thing that is a bad smell for me, for lack of things. So it's much better to have 2 of your own projects than 10 projects that you forked, have never done anything with, because what it shows me is potentially you're trying to fill your GitHub with things that aren't necessarily yours. If you are committing and you're doing pull requests and things like that, great, leave that. But if you're not, just think about how many of your own projects versus how many of other people's pulls you're doing. I really, really love people who can document. So this was the other reason why we chose the 2 candidates we chose. This was the kind of documentation we got from them. We had an explanation, we had mocks and wireframes, we had schemas, and we, Coda General Assembly taught people to use Trello. Generally in sort of enterprise software, we don't use Trello, we use things like DevOps, but it does show me the ability to break down a problem, to think about what it is you're actually coding, rather than getting a GitHub where there is no README, there is just a bunch of stuff. I can't download the code, I can't run it. And for me, then at a certain point, I'm going, righto, this may be a great candidate, but it's not a candidate for us because they don't value documentation and they don't value the soft skills that sometimes are associated with a good developer. And once again, just another example of a project, one of the guys that we did hire. And once again, you can see you've got things like, here's what we use, here's what needs to be done. I do like the wireframes, and once again, he did the data modeling on the whiteboard, which shows very, very good. These are all the things I don't have to teach a person. And this is what makes me interested in the candidate much more than some of the other Reacts had a look at, which had nothing, or minimally would just the create React bootstrap README copied. So I believe, and people can question me on this, that a pre-work interview is most, in these days, is just as important as a face-to-face interview. As I said, I think I did an evaluation of about 20 GitHubs, and we narrowed it down to about 5 people that we actually interviewed. And most of them they're just not that quality. And if you look at a GitHub and you find 2 or 3 people that have this kind of quality, you kind of go into yourself, do I want to spend time talking to candidates that don't put the same attention? And it may be right, it may be wrong, but if you are going to go down the path of doing GitHub, do it well. And I would suggest really adding documentation and those things. Work on projects. So as I said, documentation is important. And be able to talk to your code. So one of the things I did do in the interview itself is I asked people about their code, how they broke it down. So sometimes, you post a bit of code and, just to show that you can write React, but it's a good idea to be able to talk to it. Don't oversell your skill sets. This is more for people on CVs and personal sort of, you do portfolio pages. And I've seen some portfolio pages of people coming out of General Assembly. I knew they were coming out of General Assembly because I could see their LinkedIn, and they're going, hey, I've got CI/CD experience, I've got database experience, which, yes, but what would have happened is, let's say we had a company that decided that we're going to give you a challenge with databases, and when you were working on that project, you weren't really involved. You're setting yourself up for success. So some of the CVs and the personal pages I rejected were just basically because people were overreaching. A lot of the successful candidates who progressed said, I really like React, I want to work in React. Yes, I can learn about APIs. And I really wanted to have people that I could give a React challenge, and I wanted people that would succeed in it. Just checking we're still alive. Yeah.
Certainly.
Good. So as a junior developer, the biggest thing we're going to hire you for is culture fit. We know we're going to take you on. We know we're going to teach you skills, but we can't teach you attitude. And the thing we don't want to be spending time doing, I will happily teach people how to make API calls, how to troubleshoot APIs, how to make networking calls. I don't want to teach people how to just be honest and communicative because, once again, busy company, we're trying to bring people on to advance what we're trying to do and expedite it. We're not trying to bring people on to teach them basic skills. So, as Simon Sinek says, high for attitude, we can always teach skills. This is a personal thing. I really hate dry interviews. And what I mean by dry interview is we kind of go in and people kind of waffle around for half an hour, and it just doesn't seem to be any point to the interview. And I walked out of interviews like that. So one of the things I do try to do is be very open with you as a candidate about the things that I'm going to ask you. And I tell you that we are looking for culture fit. And here's the 4 questions that we're going to ask you. We're going to limit it to 30 minutes, and it's not going to be an assessment of your technical skills, because as I said before, I'm going to figure out your technical skills pretty quickly with a code challenge. And anything you can tell me in a culture fit interview about your coding skills, I can prove out in a coding challenge. So the 4 questions I like to ask: tell me about yourself. What drives you? What excites you about the opportunity? What do you think the biggest challenge for you will be for joining Search 365? And any questions you have. Hopefully I don't have to hire anybody soon, so I will give you some good answers of some of the things I look for when people say that make me kind of go, yep, I'm gonna try to get this person into our company. Worked at some jobs, some previous employment, even if it is doing a website for a medical center down the road, it's good. It shows that you can, and especially if you've been doing it, even if it's small work, being able to get sort of your own work and how many people come back to you shows me, that you can actually do good work. A lot of the guys that we were talking to came out of General Assembly, and one of the things that came across very clear is that they had a passion for programming. And a lot of the reasons was, they were in jobs such as business analysis, or they were in marketing. And sooner or later, they got tired of doing tedious things, and they found that programming made the job easier. They got the bug, and you could hear the excitement when you're talking about, hey, we did that. Then I went and invested time in learning. So 12 weeks and the cost of actually upskilling is actually quite a bit of an investment, which actually, if I'm evaluating you, I think it's good because it shows a willingness to, that you love it, that you're investing, that you're moving, and that you want to grow, and that I can actually offer you something. I'm interested in solving problems. So one of the reasons I asked people about their apps, and I look at their GitHub, is I actually want them to articulate how they broke it down, and they could actually tell you how, a lot of these were personal projects, and some people loved hiking, and they were like, this is a great app. I couldn't see it. I had to go at it. These are the kind of things that make me interested in you and the candidate, and that's why I asked that question. I don't lead the question. I ask people, give me a bit of a history and what really drives you. And if people answer and I hear those sort of things, then I know we've got somebody who's driven. What excites you about the opportunity? So this is an interesting question. What I'm trying to find is that I want to find people who want to grow and learn more. I want people who want to do this full time, people who want to take on new skills, that have something that, that teaches them how a software company works. And they actually want something from our company. They can articulate, and not everybody wants the same thing. Some people want experience, some people want mentorship, some people want a working environment. But if you actually know why you're going to the company instead of, I just want a job, then that makes me realize that I can convert. And the biggest thing I have to answer to my, when I'm interviewing and promoting candidates, the biggest question I have to answer to my CEO and my chief operating officer is this somebody worth investing in? And I try to figure that out by asking that question. If somebody says, yeah, it's because I need employment, or I need a job, then I can't be going, this is going to be one of these people that doesn't bring that extra 10% that we need as a company that deals with a lot of very interesting things. And especially if I have a bank of other candidates, it's sort of one of those things. So the key takeaway here is have some reason that you want to go to the company and be able to articulate it. What challenges do you think in joining our company? And the people generally answer this one well. Agile processes, no experience in the frameworks. I don't hold that against people, and I generally, the stuff that we do, .NET Core, Azure, and stuff like that, you don't find many graduates. So, it's one of those things that we're happy, and that's why we want to teach you. Coming up to speed, being productive, being good as other coders, getting time with seniors, and learning our processes. So all of those things indicate to me that people have thought about, if I give you a job, it's not just going to be plain sailing. There is going to be a bit of work. What do you think it is? And this differs between people, person to person. It's not always the same. But those are the kind of answers that I like to hear from candidates, because not only do they have, do they have the experience, They're showing me why they want to be there, and they're showing me that they've thought about what it is that is going to happen. This is probably me giving away, hopefully not giving away some trade secrets. This is the worst answered question that I found across sort of 10 interviewees. Any questions do you have? Most people ask us about our tech stack, and that's great. Some of the other questions that I think that people should ask, and don't forget, an interview is a two-way process, and you're trying to figure out if you've got the right motivation, if you're trying to figure out if this company is the one for you, and this company's going to be a bit greedy, this company is going to deliver what you want, you need to be honest and ask some brutal questions as well. What do you expect in the first 6 months? I'm hiring somebody, and I can articulate to people what it is that I'm looking for in the first 3 months, right? What's your team like? That's very, very important. You're going to be working with these people, whether it's remotely or in the office. How does your team work? You guys that just get things done, do you like to plan a lot? Do you kind of try and see? Do you like to experiment? Once again, some people are more naturally curious, and you don't want to be a curious person working in a team that's very, very process driven, because that's about fit. Ask the interviewers what keeps them at the company. If the interviewers can't articulate what keeps them in the company, then it may be a good indication that it may not be the company for you. I mean, some of the best answers I've had, some people just said, look, it's just the CEO is great or my boss is great. But it's a good question to ask employees and potential employers. And don't forget, it's a two-way thing. It's an interview. It's not just about you justifying there. It's also about you try to figure out if this company is right for you. What's the biggest challenges for the company in the next 3, 6, 12 months? The reason why I asked that question is because hopefully there'll be some holes you can fill. And without them knowing what their challenges are, you may not know that there's enough work. Sometimes companies tend to front load because they think they're going to get a contract and it doesn't happen, and you get disappointed 3 months down the track and you get laid off. So I like to work for companies that can tell me that they've got a 12-month plan and they know that there are backlogs. And what are your weaknesses? What are some of the things you can work on in the company? And if there's those things that the interviewer can answer, usually I think it's quite a good thing it's a good company, it's a good candidate for you as well, especially as a junior developer. And then the last thing I talk about is what's really important for us. Remote work. So we were a fully remote company even before COVID. But now with COVID, most likely you will get the opportunity to work remotely. So some of the most excellent answers I got is people talking about how they've invested in desks, how they've invested in new microphones, how they have invested in new computers and things like that. It's really, really good. It shows that you're ready for this new era. Communication, the ability to peer program. It's very, very important for us. Getting and clicking on with the other team members, willingness to grow, problem solving, and the really other important ones I keep saying is that we have something we can offer you, i.e. we can keep you for 18 months or more. Your junior developers, you may choose to move on after you've got the experience, but I don't want to bring on a developer that grows tired of us in 6 months and we have to do the stuff again. And that's why I rig the questions to get those people that think about that sort of stuff. So in summary, culture is king. Ask questions in interview. Ask your interviewer questions because you want to be, you want to know that this company is right for you. Be prepared to answer the questions. So I think, just practice. If you can grab a developer friend and say, hey, can we do a mock interview? I think it's a really, really good thing because it helps you get those canned responses. And use, as I keep saying, use the interview to suss out if this is the company you want to be in. It's important I think it's really, really important to enjoy where you work because it shows growth. Right, so the coding challenge, which is the last sort of step. See how we actually break down, see how honest you are, and how you break down the problem. So I'm actually going to show you the actual coding challenge we send to our developers, potential developers. And I keep it very, very light. So I give them the goals. So what I'm saying is the aim of this coding challenge is not necessarily to write the best thing since sliced bread, but it is to be able to walk us through how you solve the problems and the problems you encountered, and to have a bit of fun. We usually give them a definition of done. So it's using our search APIs, and there's actually only 2 or 3 things they have to achieve as a minimal scope. and then they have to present it. We also give our potential developers access to our own harness, what we call the UI harness, which demonstrates all the capabilities of our platform. And the reason why we do that is we want them to be able to kind of get some inspiration, but also get a bit of idea of what we're after. Because sometimes, we're doing a fairly technical product. It can be quite hard to suss out what does this guy actually want me to do. Whereas if you can see it, sometimes you can do it. And once again, the review styles you guys probably picked up. I'm much more interested in how did you explore the APIs? Did you use Postman? Did you reverse engineer the calls? Did you use a tool? How did you tackle the initial parts of the code? What were the tools you used? How did you select, for React specifically? Why did you choose Axios over Fetch? May have more experience for it, but if you can articulate that, when I'm having a conversation with you further down the road as head of systems engineering, and I'm making calls like, hey guys, we are going to standardize on Axios because here's the things that I like about it. You can kind of have that intelligent conversation with me. Hey, Andrei, that's great, but what about this with Fetch? And what you learn and get stuck on. And most of the guys that did the coding challenge were able to talk to this, which is it was a very rewarding experience. So I'm just going to show a couple of screenshots of what people delivered for us, which is really, really good. One person decided to do a knockoff of Google, and it worked. And another person kind of sort of did very close monkey see, monkey do, which was fine. That's what we felt comfortable with. But once again, he achieved the requirements that we wanted. So coding challenges. Be prepared to do a coding challenge. I would be very surprised if it's as a junior developer they don't ask you to do a coding challenge. Set timeframes and communicate those timeframes with the person who gave you the coding challenge. One of our devs that we hired had to delay it for a week because he had family matters. Setting timeframes doesn't necessarily mean that people will punish you for not reaching those timeframes, but if you can articulate, it's good. Actually do the coding challenge. You'd be surprised that 2 out of the 6 people that we gave the challenge to didn't actually do it. And the 2 that did it, funnily enough, got the job. It's not rocket science. The other 2 is prepare. So I suggest to other people coming out of General Assembly is that they build themselves a little skeleton project that they can figure out all those little things. Most of the time, you're going to be building custom components and you're probably going to be making API calls. So whatever you can do to kind of boilerplate it as much as you can is good. Keep your skills sharp. I can't, even if it is 2 hours a week, keep coding in React if you want a React job. Because when it comes to the coding challenge, you don't want to be remembering how to do a component. You want to be sliding in those 2 there. And the last bit is please learn OpenAPI 3 or Swagger. And the reason why is most of and this is why we did the breakdown and we interviewed people, most of the things that people struggled with was the fact that they had to spend a lot of time reversing our code when they didn't actually have to do it, because in our Swagger, we described everything in very plain English. And that is the idea of Swagger. But what I found was that even though we gave people that were doing the coding challenge access to our Swagger documentation, they really didn't know how to drive it. So they went back to that kind of hacky, I'm just going to reverse API calls. Whereas they could have done much better experiences by reading the Swagger. So, and we do a lot of RFPs, or we work a lot with enterprise clients. Almost every enterprise client wants to use Swagger. It's almost a prerequisite. So, it's one of those things that I think if you are going to go for coding challenge, it's an invaluable skill to get under your belt. Not every Swagger document is good, but you can save yourself a lot of time by reading the Swagger documentation. So 2 developers 3 months on, and I actually talked to those 2 developers today, and I said, am I going to be telling lies? And no, they agreed. They progress their projects, which is really good. That's what we hired them to do. So they're doing the work we hired them to do. They learned the agile ceremonies, so the stand-ups, the planning, the showcases, and then retrospective, and they actually bring a lot of value to those ceremonies, which is really, really good. They actively contribute to our team in a wide range of things. They work really well with their colleagues. And remember, that's one of the things that we're a completely remote team, very important for us to communicate and get on with things. They've learned to use a wide range of DevOps tools, so everything from Azure pipelines to Azure boards and a few other things, and Azure repos, which is really good. And 3 months on, they're fairly confident doing a push. They understand how we review the code. And the good thing is they're pursuing their own Azure certifications to help grow their own skills and to basically help the company as well. They bring their own sense of humor. So the bottom there was one of the tasks I got the other week. Develop one of the sandboxes to roll around in the sand, apparently. No, but generally happy campers. And that's what we set out to do. Don't forget, we set out to find people that we can slot in to highly, it can be highly pressured environment, very technical people. We want them to slot in, add value, learn and grow. And I think 3 months on, we're going to be keeping both. But at the same time, they were able to validate that this is not just me saying that because I'm blowing my own horn. Right, so for the last 5 minutes, I'm just going to talk about bringing your awesome, which is actually very, very hard to do. Well, I find, sometimes it can be hard at the beginning of careers. This may be controversial. Promote yourself, GitHub, LinkedIn, networking, work on projects, contribute to open source, go to hackathons. If you know what a hackathon is, go look it up. Usually they're free. The middle one, don't be a mercenary. Focus on what you want from a job. Don't just say I want to be paid. If that's your objective, you're going to be very quickly culled out on culture, and you're probably going to find that you're getting frustrated. So if you're finding that quite a lot, just think, am I going articulating my awesomeness? Am I going and trying to find people and find companies that I can see myself in, and be picky, and give yourself focus to be able to do things like coding challenges. So what we found out is the other 4 candidates were actually interviewing for 10 things. They didn't think, and we think we did a good job of selling it, but they didn't value the time potentially. They valued their time in trying to bet the odds or trying to get more things and play around with various coders. And I actually talked to one of the developers and going, what happened? And he said, I had 3 offers and I was, playing, trying to get the most out of the offers, and you got none at the end. So that's what I mean by don't be a mercenary. I know it's hard out there, but focus on what you want and bring the skills, bring your awesome, and keep yourself and your company honest. So that's one of the other things that with the 2 new devs that I try to encourage is we promised you things. We promised you to teach you new things, to grow and expand. We promised you 3, 6, 12 months ago, and things like that. So keep us honest. Make sure that we don't just put you in a little dark hole, and that and that's really, really important. So because if you get put in a little dark hole and you were hired for your awesome, but for whatever reason you get put under a bushel, let's just say, and you never get to show that awesome, it can be very hard for you 3 months down the road to get what you want. The last bit is something quite interesting that I've been quite thinking about. So this was something that I found floating around on Facebook. 2 pilots, very qualified pilots, who are now Coles drivers. So pilots aim to get jobs as Coles drivers. I think that one of the things that even junior developers or developers are going to have to start thinking about is a secondary specialty. So something that, yes, you can code React, but what about other bits? So I think something, if you say bring your awesome, some of the things that I would like to see in developers or just generally is things like secure coding, really good UI testing with Selenium. And yeah, I'm not saying you have to do this with do all of these, but bring something else that inside out is what I'm trying to say here, that is actually shows not only can you code, but you can probably help with other bits. For example, a CI/CD pipeline. Just learn either Azure or AWS and show that you can actually pull your code from GitHub repo, that you can go through all the build steps, that you can potentially do the tests, and you can actually publish it and it works. If you can show that in an interview, automatically you get the extra 10%. And it's not everybody. I'm not saying everybody needs to do that. Look at things like Prometheus and OpenTrace. I think instrumentation is becoming more and more important. Machine learning is now moving to the edge, so there are some great machine learning libraries that you can integrate with React and maybe do something different. Authentication technologies, it's always a good thing to show, or analytics or data presentation, using React libraries. So just find that something extra and be good at it. Don't just put it on your, just like as I said, focus on what your core skills are, but if you can actually have time to get the secondary specialty that the company may value, and I think all of those things companies value and don't necessarily have time, it's a good thing to have. And with a Docker, with times, the number of times I looked at a GitHub, I was trying to run some code and I was just going, man, if this was a Docker file or on Docker Hub, I could have actually looked at what I was interested in. But trying to build things, and I've got various versions of Node and things like that, I just gave up. So, sometimes it's good to go and learn, and Docker's a valuable skill, for example. So I think, as we're not going to be out of the woods for a while. I think COVID will slowly start, getting under control. People will start hiring again. But while they're not, and you want to kind of stand out, do that, or do a BrisJS talk. Hey, Kevin. So that's me. And I guess probably the next bit will be questions and answers.
You got that correct. All right. Let me just set up. We got a whole bunch of questions, so this is going to be good. Let me just transfer one over. Get my video back up. Here we are, side by side. Okay, I'm going to read out a couple of these. And we'll start from the top. Can you give some examples of happy hunting grounds? Was one of them.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why I attend things like the Python meetups, the BrisJS meetups, is you tend to find a lot of coders very quickly. So that used to be what I would call a happy hunting ground. Obviously now those move virtually, but organization, Code Academy would be probably another example, just a little bit harder to get to. General Assembly is a happy hunting ground for us because they have a success team. So part of the appeal, and I'm not saying they're the only ones, part of the appeal of doing and paying them is that they've got success managers, and those success managers are constantly talking to us and constantly sending us. So they're actually finding good candidates for us, which means that I don't have to post things on Seek. I don't have to spend a lot of time. And both of the guys we hired were ex-Coder Academies, and we're actually looking for people in Brisbane, but they were so good and we're so impressed that we actually decided to have 2 more people in Melbourne, which we didn't have anybody in Melbourne beforehand. So sometimes, Brisbane would be a happy ground for us, but yeah, it ended up that we found good developers, and we're assessing developers on ability. Where they were was secondary, and I know it's a little bit harder now to do the meetups, but I met a lot of great people through the meetups. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question.
Awesome. How is the coding challenge used? Is it for leveling assessment or for an entry gate?
That's a good question. So it was supposed to give us an idea of, if we had 5 great candidates, both did a really good job, then our devs would have basically picked who they want to work with. So it gave us the ability, because the devs did the review, so our devs did the review, which I didn't mention. But when we did the code walkthrough, I was there. I was more interested in the problem solving, and the devs really then dived into, did you use components? Did you use the proper HTML and stuff like that? So it would have been a level ground, but what it ended up, because only 2 people actually ever submitted it, it ended up being more of a, as a gate. It was actually both, but if there were more people actually did it, it may have been that final thing that kind of said, if our dev said, look, seeing these guys code, we like the way he codes React and the way he codes React, it basically saves us having to go and figure that out later. So yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, have we killed the whiteboard interview yet?
Yes. If you're going to generally, if you're going to do whiteboard interviews, I don't think coding is a whiteboard interview thing. And the reason why is autocomplete. I write code occasionally, mainly to do with sort of testing, but you can get me to write Python on the whiteboard, because every time I write it, I get autocomplete and anything else. I wouldn't be hiring junior developers, and don't forget that the focus of this talk is about junior developers. So if we were going to get a lead developer, I would probably do a whiteboard with him. The whiteboard would be about problem solving and approaches, because if we had a senior developer, what would be expecting them to do is own a bit more of the CI/CD decisions, things like which React libraries we use, how we deal with indication. With the junior developers, there is no point. I mean, being able to memorize code is not something that it's not something I value. Also, I failed a HackerRank interview for that specific reason, because I didn't have my autocompletes. I didn't have all my usual things. So I believe that much more realistically, there's nobody who memorizes code. Much more realistically, what we're looking for is problem solving, is it your code? Did you actually work the problems and were you able to do it? Because that's what development really is when it comes to it is, I don't know this, we can whiteboard it together as solutions, whatever, but I'm not ever going to expect somebody to memorize code. So no, I think hopefully the whiteboard interviews did, especially for junior developers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's one of those things that has no place in our tech stack, at least for in our interview stack. Sorry, for at least in the junior and mid sections.
Yeah.
Cool. So there's another one in here. The coding challenges and assignments take a lot of time. Any advice for people having to do potentially 4+ of these at a time and end up almost full time on it?
Yep. So remember what I said? I'm going to say it in a slightly different way. Be a classy broad. Choose a company. You can't do 4 challenges, and you should. I would be very surprised. I gave you some hints on things like use open API specs to speed things up. While you've got a bit of downtime, make that boilerplate stuff something you can do. You do as much of the boilerplate stuff as you can, but generally, I wouldn't be doing 4 coding challenges. I would be asking myself if I could do 2, which 2 would I would do? And I would suggest that to the developers as well, they're potentially hiring, because I do understand that there's an investment in time. But at the same time, the number of things it tells us as a potential recruiter, we haven't had to have any bad experiences. So yeah, as I said, if you're doing 4 coding challenges at the same time, then probably just reprioritize. I know it's hard, people got to eat and things like that, but it's better to do 2 things really, really well than do 4 things half-assed, because then you've spent the 40 hours and you don't have any outcome at the end. So that would be my suggestion if I was face-to-face.
There's one from Simon Curran. Sorry, I can't read that properly on the screen. Curran. Have you found it difficult to mentor juniors remotely?
Yes, very difficult. So there are certain things that help us. There is, for example, Microsoft Code. Visual Studio Code has live server. My biggest frustration actually not with the mentoring, it's with the tools. So trying to do coding over Teams and certain things are done that you type. There are times when I'm just like, I do get grumbly sometimes. It is hard. I worked with a company that had Philippines team. It's very, very difficult, not just with the language, but with doing it. It is an investment. And that's why I do want people who want to communicate, who are open to go, hey, I've stuck on this. Can you help me troubleshoot this? Can you help me with these error messages? I would much rather do that. And obviously we had to do that because we're remote. Then not do the mentoring and have people who kind of fall behind, and then you kind of go, oh, what's happening? But yeah, it's hard to remotely mentor, especially the value you get from sitting with somebody, or the value you get with a junior developer having a beer after work on Friday. It's very hard to replace. We do try to get together as a team once every 3 months, which is a little bit harder with COVID. But yeah, it's hard to. I would be, unless you're a teacher, unless you're somebody who does Udemy courses and that's your life, and you have that particular bent, it is very hard, because what you have to do is you have to explain concepts. I spend a lot of time in PowerPoint now. I draw a lot of boxes, and how people write code. We found that live server, as I said, is really good because I can actually just type the code and do the comments. But yeah, it's one of those things that you have to take on, and it's just part of the job.
Makes sense. There was a follow-up question from Simon. How long is one of those coding challenges? Sorry, let me read it properly. How long is one given roughly for a challenge whilst we're on the topic?
Yeah, so remember how I said that negotiate your timeframes? I don't give, purposely, I don't give people, I just see what people do, because this is part of the idea. And what you find is I'll give you a nudge after a week. So generally I give people a week because, a lot of times people have jobs and, for the same reasons that people mentioned, people might be applying for jobs and doing things. So generally after a week, I'll give you a nudge and just see how you're going. But generally I'll leave that. And this is probably a hint for those of you doing code challenges, just negotiate that stuff up front, right? So just say, you're expecting this done in 1 day. What are you expecting? And then just deliver to what you negotiate. This is, that's part of what you'll be doing day to day, and that's part of what you'll be doing in sprint ceremonies like planning poker and things like that. You'll be negotiating how long you think it's going to take. So that's why I think the two guys that we hired did a really good job of communicating. They still had to be prompted, but they actually completed it within 1-2 weeks. And I think that's a reasonable time frame, because at the same time, we're trying to hire, they're trying to hire. So there is always that balance between, I don't want the developers, and I have to be appreciative of developers, especially the good ones, that they may have other interviews and offers, but at the same time, it's kind of just negotiate it. So if you think it's going to take you a weekend, just say, hey, I'm going to do this over the weekend. I'll give you a status update on Monday. And if you come in the Monday and go, hey, the weekend just went to crap, can I have another week? I will say yes. I think it's communication. Part of the coding challenge is more about how you approach it rather than set rules. I'm not going to say, oh, if this guy's going to take more than 2 weeks, I'm going to can him. So I'm trying to read the chat as well. I'm going to can him because he took 2 weeks, because it could be things like, you're going to a family thing and everything else. So yeah, as I said, negotiate it, set up and go, yes, I'm going to do this code challenge. You'd be surprised the number of people say, yes, I'll do a coding challenge. And that's all you hear. One of the best people that I've heard was said, okay, yes, I can dedicate time. What did you think? How much do you think? They actually negotiated right there in the interview. And that set them up for success, because they knew exactly what we're expecting. I said, look at the coding challenge and actually look at what we're trying to achieve. What we're trying to achieve is give you 3 very simple, not simple, but average simple tasks. But we're more interested in how you have a go at it and that you have a go at it, rather than giving me a fully working bulletproof app that I can deploy tomorrow. So just negotiate all that, because on the other side is, I've also been rejected from a job for that exact same thing. I didn't negotiate any of that, and the customer actually was looking for something that just wasn't achievable in a week, given that I was going to job 9 to 5. And that's where I get the takeaway from, is basically just negotiate. And it was a very hard app. I kind of got it working. And I thought I actually was patting myself on the back, thinking I did pretty well. But the customer was going, "This is crap. I can't show this to." So the people I was applying, so just negotiate it, and it's a good time to have that chat when people are saying, "Are you open to it?" The other good thing is do call, because what you'll find is, if you don't understand some things and you call the person giving it to you and they can't verify, that's usually a bad indicator for you as a potential developer that the company is going to throw you potentially under the bus and let you go. So sometimes it's a good idea to verify and talk about that, because if people can't answer it, then you kind of go, and it's the same thing to that 2 to 4 question sometimes, and maybe that's how you figure out which 2 you focus on by sort of doing that. So yeah, hopefully that answers that.
Yeah, and I mean, there's also a difference for, like you said, if you can't get more information, you'll find out whether or not there'll be a supportive environment too, right? Yep. Like if they can contact you, and some places, not saying it's wrong, they'll take the generic tests and things from other places, especially if it's through recruiting agencies. Yep. They might sort of farm out a questionnaire from one of these,
I've seen a lot of
rank or something.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. We try to keep the interview process short, because obviously we don't have full-time HR. It's taking time out of my day doing stuff. So that's why we kind of compacted into the coding challenge, because they actually solved a whole lot of stuff for us. So HackerRank may tell you somebody can code JavaScript. Showing you an app that works and walking through it gives me so much more to work with. So I'm not saying it's not the right thing, but as I said, we're not at one of these FANG companies where you might do 5 or 6 steps to get into it. We're a small company, and what we're really interested in is your attitude and your ability to break down problems and actually write your own code, whether it's the most stylistic code in the world.
Yeah. And not everyone's going to give you these large assignments either. Like the JS assessment that we're running in our team has been a series of it's just a test. Yep. You run the tests, and you write some code till they pass. And they should be sort of 10-minute questions, and there's probably about 10 of them. Depending on your level, and it will actually expose a lot of information about what your experience level is and things like that as well. So the folks that have done this through their development teams will have actually constructed quite ingenious ways to not provide a long test as well. So you'll come up with a whole bunch of different experiences out there. Some folks will make you write a full app and submit the whole thing, and other folks will make you write like a small test that just tries to see how you work with, map and reduce. So those kinds of things are really varying in your experience when you get out there in this industry.
And the other thing is, as I said, sometimes as employers, we're trying to short circuit a lot of the other stuff, right? So, there may be a good team. We don't have a team that can write good JS because our team that writes JavaScript, we don't hire that often. So it's much easier to do something that we know that we can kind of go, yeah, that looks good, rather than having a team. If you got a team of, 10 to 20 developers and somebody can take time and go, hey, here's what we like in there. And that's a problem. That's the right problem. That's the right problem for the company. Yeah.
Cool. There's one from Simon here as well. How would you recommend to display experience with a technology, display experience with a given technology, with only minimal experience in it? Regarding what you mentioned about database experience was the specific question.
Yeah. So that's a good question. So what I was talking about there was much more that if you got minimal experience in technology, obviously, if you're going for front end and you haven't built back ends, just do something generic that just shows CRUD operations. I think with databases would be enough. But here's what I'm trying to show there. If you say you've got experience in these skill sets, you say I'm a full stack web developer, right? And I give you something like a MERN, or you say you've got that, and you spend all your time trying to get Mongo working. You don't get an API, you don't get an UI, nothing works. You deliver me something. That's what I'm trying to say is you're better off not trying to challenge on. I'm just saying, look, I'm trying to expand into a full stack developer. My strengths are here, because then I'll give you an API. I'll take care of that for you. Whereas if you're going, hey, you're really going, I'm great website developer. So what I'm trying to say is really make people aware, because we're not setting people up to fail. We're trying to figure out whether potentially if we were using Postgres, like we just said we were a Ruby, and I might go, you're interviewing for front end, but could you be a jack of all trades? That may be why I give you that thing. And that's what I'm saying, that if you're not as good as technology, it's just going to say, look, it's there. And if the coding challenges relies on that, then think about how you can renegotiate and say, hey, is there any way I can do either dummy data? Sometimes write an API that just writes to a CSV file, use something like an SQLite database. As I said, I've seen guys that do this sort of stuff, and they spend 90% of their time of their coding challenge fixing the database problem, and nothing ever comes up. And then it just really, it's just like, it's disappointing for the guys. And that's what I'm saying, that, and where that comes from is that people set themselves up. And another example is we had a guy in a previous role who said he was a Kafka expert, and it just so happened we had a project coming up with Kafka. So we made his challenge to deal with Kafka, and he just failed miserably. And then that all broke down. And I don't think it was wrong of us, but he had that as one of his, hey, I've done this. And what happened was that he didn't know. It was unfortunate, but that's just the way these things crumble. So what I'm saying is just choose what you project will most likely be what people test you on. So choose stuff you're really confident in, and if you're not as confident in databases, just say, and don't forget, I'm not talking about full stack senior developers here. If you're a full stack senior developer, I would imagine that you would be able to bash your way through Postgres. We're hiring junior developers, so the advice I'm giving is to a junior developer role.
Yeah, so just be realistic about your strengths, explain them clearly. If you've got some areas that you don't feel as confident in, it makes sense to explain those as well. Nobody's trying to crucify you for those things, especially since, like at our company, we talk about T-shaped skills, this is my main track, right? Like I started as a front-end dev, but then now I know how to do server-side node, and I can also understand how to query things. And so, like developing the T-shape is like, that's the shorter part of your experience, but this is the main track. So understanding where people come from and where they're trying to branch into is very useful, because you can also, as a hirer, understand what kind of career trajectory you need to offer people as well. So those kinds of really useful things are really useful to know and balance and have a good conversation about with your prospective employer. Alrighty, there's one from Camilo. Any advice for internationals with visa restrictions? Even if you have experience and passion, many companies reject you without the opportunity to interview. Yeah, it's a challenging one.
Yeah, I don't have any experience in the area. So, remember I said I'm not an HR or a recruitment specialist. I don't I don't have What I will say is sort of go for the smaller companies because they tend to be a bit more. Actually, no, the opposite. Go for the bigger companies because they have HR professionals that can deal with that and they fill out many of these forms. Smaller companies tend to get scared because they tend to kind of think, oh, I don't want to be in the business of managing those. So sometimes just choose companies that you think that may have, and what I generally find is my friends who are international and have visas and stuff like that, you generally find if you go to the bigger end of town, like people like Accenture, those other guys, they're going, oh yeah, welcome to the other 400 South Africans we have. And sometimes it can be, they don't hire as many juniors, but I would say, some companies, local companies, smaller companies, sort of mid-sized companies also have the experience, but it's not an easy one to solve. But yeah, as I said, with other friends applying for sort of similar roles, they found it a lot easier for the bigger guys coming in the junior level with the bigger guys was a lot easier because it wasn't a, or even medium scale sort of companies that have maybe 30, 40 developers, they will have an HR team of sorts that, and they probably have hired other foreigners before or work visa people. So that's what I would suggest. Don't try to, because a lot of the startups and can be like yes something until they get other people and that visa becomes their last thing, whereas with the bigger guys it's not. I don't think, this is personal opinion, so don't hold me to it. I don't think it's as much of a deal breaker for them.
Yeah, I think some of those complexities come into the hiring limits that there are. There's governmental restrictions on how many folks you can take in. This has been years ago, like that I had some exposure to it. There was like for every 10 employees that you had, you were allowed to have one visa application, like work visa sponsorship. There was some sort of there's kind of like bag limits. It's a weird setup, but a lot of that has to go through application, and then you have to. It takes a long time to get approved, and it's an arduous process for companies to go to. If they've got a dedicated person that works in HR or people and culture sort of development, they have a team potentially that's going to be a much easier thing for them to tackle. It's something that is actually going to come up a hell of a lot more now that I think a lot of companies are seeing the fact that most of their own employees are remote. They're having folks from outside the current city and outside the current country eventually is going to be a much more commonplace occurrence. And so really it just becomes about getting the legals then sorted rather than the tooling and I guess the interview and the communication, the rest of it. So it is going to become a thing that hopefully they can streamline in the future, but that's kind of again, getting through governments and getting through the legalese of all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a tricky one, but it's definitely something. If you can find a company that supports that, it's extremely useful. So they'll often advertise those kinds of things, and hopefully you can learn that up front. What else we got? What are some good ways to find out about culture and activities of a company so that we can get interested up front? I guess that's that, getting that interest and getting that passion development in a potential company.
So I generally find the best advocates for a company are the people interviewing you. So that's why I say everybody says, do you have any questions? And if during your interview that never comes up, that's one of the good things to talk about. Just say, hey, what is it you guys do? Do you have any unique culture things? Have a look at the company website. If the company has a people and culture team, they love posting, we've just done this marathon and stuff like that. But that's one of those good questions to bring up. Like me personally, it's not a big part, and given that I've worked for very distributed remote teams for the last 4 years, obviously the only culture I get is going out with my dog. But for other people, if it's a very important part for you, and don't forget what I said was find a company that brings out that has that sort of stuff, and that's very, very important for you. Then make sure you bring it up because that's what's going to help you grow and succeed. Don't if you said to me, hey, what have you guys done together? And I'll probably say, look, we've caught up twice this year, and most of the time it's 5 hours of whiteboarding, then we'll become 12 angry men, we'll go to the pub, have a few pints. And if that's not you, then don't try to, you know what I mean? Like find the company that, you know, whether it's one of the local Brisbane companies. I think people are going back to work. I'm seeing more and more of these sort of things coming back. So yeah, so just bring it up during the initial interview and just ask them, hey, what have you guys done as team building activities? Or, you know, what was your Christmas party like? That's always a good icebreaker to talk about. Did you guys do anything fun? So yeah, just ask.
We've got one from Alison Killen, it says here. What are some typical strengths and weaknesses you see in the workforce from bootcamp grads, and how do you work through those weaknesses and support strengths?
Right, so the strengths really are, to be honest, strengths are the problem-solving skills tend to be very good. They're hungry, which is good for us, and then the fact that they want to learn, we've got something to offer them. I think that those are the three really important strengths, because once again, we've got to be realistic. We're hiring graduates, so we're trying to grow them, trying to get them to contribute to our company and grow with us, right? Weaknesses, to be honest, the biggest weaknesses I find is people tend to get upset about the small things, like especially graduates. They're very easy to spook. So like the way I work with the two we've got is I just give them a lot of crap, and after a while they realize, okay, it's not that bad. You know, we had a Microsoft outage and I blamed one of our new devs, and he was stressing, and then you kind of realize, oh, you're just taking the mickey, aren't you? I'm like, yes. So sometimes you got to be prepared, but yeah, don't doubt yourself. It's very, very hard, you know, and sometimes for me, people get really, really upset. The other weakness I would say is, as I mentioned, open API. Go read some open, learn how to use that, because it makes your job a lot quicker. And don't try to be a perfectionist, right? Half the code I write doesn't work on first go. I wouldn't expect it. Really pay attention to, especially, sorry, with the coding challenge, especially, really pay attention to what it is you're trying to achieve and stick to that, because that's what is there. So what I found is some people kind of, you know, some of the stuff we saw, you know, sometimes people got off track and they spend a lot of time. So I think the true weakness, not those are the three weaknesses. Don't doubt yourself. Like, it's, you know, if you're in the door, and as I told you, I mean, well, maybe not with me, so with me, but maybe not with other companies. If you're in the door, I've already had a look at your LinkedIn, I've already looked at your GitHub, I've already determined that you're worthwhile talking to. So, you know, that in itself can be a small achievement. So don't get stressed. If you do the coding challenge, you know, read this is how I'm going to be evaluated. It's going to be a conversation. It's not justifying bits you didn't do. So those are the three weaknesses I see in juniors. Sometimes it's hard to get them out of the shell and get them confident enough, but generally what we do is start them up with small tasks. So, you know, typically juniors, the two that we hired, the first 3 weeks of training, so they did a bunch of courses, then we give them small things. They did those well, we praised them for it, we grew them. Now they're taking bigger things. So I think it's quite important in culture is, you know, sometimes, you know, make sure you have those small successes and you celebrate them. It might be your first Git push in the new company. Could be a milestone. So yeah, those are the weaknesses generally I see. It's just sometimes, you know, I want to say to these people, I can't. You're really, really good. It's okay. Don't be scared. You just want to shake them and go, it's okay. But you can't, obviously. But so yeah.
Yeah, get that confidence. The imposter syndrome is tough for
it
for
is.
all of us.
That's the fancy word for it.
Yeah, and the thing is, it doesn't go away, and that's okay. You've just gotta you know, give your crack at it, and that's why things like code reviews exist, and, you know, working with your team is important. Don't be afraid to be like, I think this works. Can you check it? Like,
yeah.
This, we're all human beings, and that's kind of why you want to get in there and sort of validate your ideas and your approaches and stuff. But don't be so, you know, cautious that you don't even start. You know, you hold yourself back. So it's easier said than done. It's one of those things that kind of only comes with a bit of experience there as well.
It's a combination.
It's a process.
It's a combination of experience and I believe being true. So remember how I said that, you know, hold people accountable. People said that you're going to have the space to fail and things like that. And the first code push you do, you can go, hey, don't forget, I'm new. got my 12 weeks, whatever it is, or whatever it is you've got. And just sometimes it's good to keep people real. I've had to do that with a few of the other guys, going, hey guys, it's really good initial stab. Here's the stuff that you didn't quite get. Let's fix that up and move on. And I think one of the biggest things to differentiate juniors and seniors is that seniors muck up as often as juniors, but we just don't let it show, and we just make it look like we meant to do that. Oh yeah, that's right, we're doing research, or we're trying that. And I think it's really, really important to just, don't when you're probably not applying for Google, you don't need to worry about it. Just have fun with it. If you can have fun in the environment, if you've chosen the right environment for yourself, I think it should be feeling natural, and you set yourself up. If you're, on the other hand, one of those people who like to be very precise, make sure you go in a team that's very precise, that you don't go in a team that kind of like, oh yeah, it's all good, because that will drive you bonkers as well. So that's what I'm saying. Culture fit is a two-way thing. It's about what you are, and you can sort of tell the jokesters fairly early on, and that's what we wanted. We want a bit of spirit in our team. That's why we chose the guys we chose. Apart from the fact that they were the only ones who actually did, it was us. But it's even if there were other people, I think, some of the guys I interviewed were very, used to work in very strict environments and things like that. And I didn't see that. So yeah, that's what I see in the, that's what I see. That's the three biggest weaknesses I could say is basically just, you're in there, prove you're awesome. That's your job for the first 3 months. As I said, make sure that you've got those goals and you're working towards those goals. And just build on each success. It doesn't matter whether it's the first bug cleared or just find the small things and build on them and get yourself confident.
Yep, believe you're awesome.
Yeah, be awesome.
There's one in here that I find really interesting. There's does age matter, especially if you've never had any white collar jobs like the ones you've mentioned? I'm in my mid-30s. Geez, I hope not. I'm in my mid-30s. I don't think it should matter.
As I said, no. In fact, one of the things that working with people, so once again, not biased towards General Assembly, but that's the guys we've just been working with. So anybody out there with different things, that's fine. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't swap. But one of the things we found with the people that we're interviewing, once again, late 20s to 30s. In fact, I actually think that sometimes older people can be more, that there's more advantages to hiring older people, not older, but, because if you can explain that there's a career pivot, then people understand that you may have been in a career for 10 years. And as I said, when I was talking about those things that I was looking for and, what drives you, what makes you passionate, a lot of the stories were, I've spent the last 8 years, I kind of been mucking around with this coding thing. Now I've really got the bug, I want to do it. There's never too late to change careers. I mean, you look at some people who are very successful and they started at 50, 60. So I don't think age is that bad. The only thing I would say about age, and hopefully nobody will sort of, hopefully I'm not out of turn, sometimes people will discriminate because of age, and the reason why is team fit. So if you've got a young team of 20 to 25-year-olds and you bring in a couple of 35-year-olds that are juniors, it may not work. The team dynamic may not work. So there has been a couple of times where we've chosen not to go with older candidates for that particular reason, just because that we just felt it wouldn't be fair for them in that dynamic. So just be aware of that. But I think there's enough out there, and there's plenty of teams I know that have 30-year-olds that are sort of still happily bashing keyboards and being developers. So yeah.
Cool. All right. So I'll go back to this view. What's the next one? We got one in here. Tick. Another one from Alison Killen. What are some typical strengths and weaknesses you see in the workforce from bootcamp grads, and how do you work those? I think that was a repost. We've done that one. Okay, never mind. Are you folks working 100% remotely at the moment? If yes, are you planning to go back to the office when restrictions are lifted?
Yes, so as I explained, I think might have been missed in the early part of the PowerPoint. We've always been 100% remote, so everybody in the company works from home and has been working from home. So that's just going to continue. There may be things that change in terms of we may set up offices, but generally as a company, we've worked remote for the last 6 years. So we haven't really, that's not the relevant question for us, probably.
Makes sense. Let me paste this one in from, I'll just hang on to that question that was in the YouTube channel. I'll do this one first from Phil. would you recommend juniors to remove the repos that they have forked and contributed to an open source project to minimize forked repos? I think you were mentioning just the ones that were kind of never touched, right? Forked and never touched.
Yeah, so if you've done pull requests and commits, I want to see that because I think that's very, very important. What I observe is a lot of people, I think they may get the inspiration, they download and go, I'm going to help this thing out. But if you actually never do a pull request or anything like that, actually, I think if you've done contributions that were accepted, it's actually really, really important because that shows me more than anything else that you actually understand how to write code that fits with other people's quality control systems. So if you've got that, definitely keep that. But once again, what I've seen is what I call sort of, and you know, this whole GitHub thing, you know, evaluating coders on GitHub is not new. I think some people, Just Digital people, sort of talked about it last year. What I think some people took is the fact that you could just stack your GitHub with fancy looking projects. And that's very easy to spot because you just don't see any pull requests. So I would suggest that, and you know, look, there's reasons why. I mean, I've got a couple of fork projects. There's reasons why you fork the projects, but if I see 100% fork projects that haven't been touched, then my sense would, and it may not be right, my sense would be that you're trying to stack your GitHub, and yeah, then you probably may get covered earlier. Luckily, a lot of the times when I see this, it's more that, you know, the guys have done probably six projects of their own, but because they've forked so many other projects, it's hard to find theirs. So I'm having to go through and go, right, you haven't forked this one, this is the one I'm going to look at. Because a lot of the time, if there's no contributions, no pull requests, I actually don't get what I want to see, which is the code quality. You know, I can actually run code quality tools against people's code, which automates a little bit as well. So I can actually get a good idea of, you know, it looks good and things like that. Whereas I'm not going to run a code quality tool against a public project because I'm going to get most likely what other people have done rather than you. So that's what I'm saying. Just differentiate what you contribute, what you kind of pulling for whatever reason. You know, sometimes I pull stuff because I'm going to add things, and I actually never do the push requests back in because of the stuff I'm writing. I'm just going to keep it local. But if there's a lot of that, then that's kind of one of those red flags that can sort of, you know, but it won't stop. So if you still got your own projects, there's a concept of pinning in GitHub as well. So pin your own projects to the top, which means that it's quicker for me to click around your projects and I actually don't have to. So if you've got 30 repos in your GitHub and you've pinned your ones to the top, I probably wouldn't even notice because I will probably look at your stuff and I'll run the code quality control tools against your code rather than trying to look at the entire thing. So that's what I would say. Just use pin, be smart, and be prepared for the questions. You know, the question may come up.
Sounds good. Next question is, what makes somebody a junior by your definition?
That's a good question. So for me, a junior development, actually a really interesting question. I don't believe in junior developers. It's a title. For me, personally, I hold our junior developers to the same standards as the senior developers. So the reason why is because I want them to grow and I want them to actually experience the same. So we give them the same tasks, we expect the same things. The term junior generally is an HR thing. So there's three things. One is probably not as much experience in coding, which by calling you a junior developer, I can actually bring you on without having the expectation. So it does help us to manage the expectation of what we get out of you and how much time frames we give. So that's one of the things. How much we pay you, unfortunately, and then how much we are prepared to invest in you. So let's just say I'm quite happy with the junior developers because I do spend a lot of time investing in them because I want them to grow. If you come in and you market yourself as a medium developer or a mid to a senior developer, but I'm having to explain everything to you, I'm going to say, cut that man or woman and get me a new person or change the budget to junior. So we had budget for junior developers. And if you remember a little analysis, we could have probably hired one very senior developer. But the challenge with the senior developer for the problem we were facing was that it was just not the right solution because they wouldn't be able to do three people's work and they actually needed three people because there's lots of things to click. And no matter how good you are, you can only click so many things a second. So I think, yeah, from my point of view, a junior developer is one is a person that you just give a bit more time to work the problems through, right? And you choose the problems you give them. There's a pay component. There's also a an aspect of kind of in the HR, what we let you do, what we don't let you do. So we don't give our junior developers full access to like Azure things, for example. So there are different aspects you can look, and as we become more trustworthy and things like that, we kind of take the role off. And I think it's just an HR thing really for us, I believe, because it just lets us sell to the company, but also manage expectations more than anything else. Because yeah, as much as titles don't make sense, you just want to make sure that you can promote yourself and move on. So yeah.
Yeah, a bit of a role in a salary bracket kind of thing.
It really is.
I think junior is also a bit of a dirty word these days. Like most folks call it associate or like entry level or something like that. Like it sounds a bit diminutive. So we want to make sure that
on my slide I said not an HR or recruitment person, so I'll stand by that.
Oh no, it's still in job ads, absolutely. But it's like it depends on who's writing it, right? So you're gonna kind of see these different titles by different names. Is really my point.
Yeah.
And it comes down to what kind of I guess investment on their side they're doing. So, and I mean by like the time that they're going to spend. Do they have enough senior folks and mid-level folks to be able to mentor and take on that responsibly, to take on people and upskill? Because you can take on as many associate level people as you want and then completely leave them hanging, and that's a terrible thing to do. So responsible environments are going to essentially know that they've got staffing resourcing to begin with to bring on those folks, and then also the budget to do so as well. So it'll come down to a lot of those different things. But yeah, the title, it may really just be you've either never had a commercial coding job before, or you're transitioning from a different language to the one that they're after, or it's really more of a entry level experience kind of indicator in my book. But as soon as you've kind of done that entry level thing, you've done the junior thing, you've had cut your teeth for a year or more on some proper code, you've been doing that stuff, you're heading rapidly to the mid-level trajectory. It's the kind of thing that you graduate out of pretty quick. Getting some of that experience under your belt is going to set you up almost immediately out of that role title. So, and it depends. Other people might have different boundaries, and they'll do tech assessments, and they'll have very defined criteria for what junior or mid means. Some places have an incredible caliber of developer in their midst, and so the ranking might be a bit higher, might be a bit harder, and that kind of stuff happens. So it will vary depending on where you kind of go. But hopefully together we've managed to fix that kind of thing up.
For me, it's a fairly clear delineation. It's about how much support, the pay, and the responsibilities. I think that's what I mean. And it's not rocket science. I think everybody really understands it, and hopefully it doesn't become one of those political things, which is why I have to be careful in the way I answer it. But it's, as I said, it's fine. Everybody has to start somewhere.
Yep, absolutely. Phil's got a question. Would knowing the fundamentals and having created a few projects using a certain stack or language be enough to put that in my CV?
Yes, absolutely.
As long as you say what you've done, be upfront about what you've built. There's one in here. Any advice for someone seeking a mentor?
Look, okay. I don't know as much of this, and actually I probably should have. There are plenty of groups and people on LinkedIn in Brisbane and other places that love their job, love coding. Go befriend Kevin, some of his friends are quite interesting. There are plenty. Go to things like, I'm not sure if you're female or male, but meetups are a great place. I know with the whole remote thing, you don't get as much mingling, but there's a mentor. Basically, don't forget that it's a two-way thing. Sometimes mentors may want something out of you as well, but I believe there are mentorship sort of like apply for a mentor in these sort of groups. It's not an area I'm familiar with, and as I said, I've got two two junior devs to babysit, so I've got I don't have much mentoring left, but I know there are people who are really good at it, and that will walk you through. There's people like career coaches. There's a group in Sydney, if you Google it, I can't remember what it's called, for that exact same thing. There's a developer who's done quite well. He only works 20 hours a week. the other 20 hours, he just chats with people, has coffees. As I said, once we get past the COVID, these sort of groups are a great place. But if you're seeking a mentor, generally, if you came up to me and you said, hey, I want a mentor, do you want to be my mentor? I'd be like, interested mentors, I would say. But yeah, just Google around. It's not something I know too well.
Yeah, people who haven't had the experience of doing mentorship as a formal thing may get a bit, scared of the word being a mentor. Really, it's hey, can we shoot the shit about code for a while? That could actually come off a little bit better. So yeah, I mean, vary your approach. You'll find that seniors who are community conscious, they come to meetups, they watch these live streams, or they do talks like this. They're pretty approachable folks. You could send me an email anytime, and that kind of thing is fine. So folks in the industry are more than happy to engage and talk. People who go to the conferences and things like that, I mean, they're mostly moving to online and over the next year, or the past year, I would have said as well. But outside of that, there's still networking opportunities, and that still happens. There's technology solutions that are coming out now that kind of bridge that gap as well. So the idea is to hop into a breakout room and chat over video call as much as you can as well. So there's going to be a lot of different opportunities for that kind of thing, even if you feel like you're a bit trapped with not having the in-person kind of thing. Shoot people some messages. Slack is great. Hop on to some of the different Slacks. We've got a Brisbane Slack here, and there's the Brisbane Developer Slack as well. I've been sending people around to those before. They're pretty active. Like, folks are in there just chatting about everyday things, their job opportunities that come up in there, what they're doing day to day. There's plenty of opportunity there to ask questions and befriend people and get mentorship. I like to call that mass mentorship, because it's a whole bunch of people that can quite happily give you tips and ideas. So yeah, there's a lot of different approaches there, and I think it really depends on what works for you as a mentee. There's another anonymous one for you. I'm doing a path for web development through Code Academy. Sorry, is that a good place to get the skills to work as a front-end developer?
I don't know. I'm sorry, I can't comment on Code Academy because I don't know. Generally, I would assume yes. Look, there's people who train themselves. I train a lot of times on Udemy, so the skills are useful. I guess the thing would be just, once you get past your course, think about how you're going to differentiate with some of the things I said. Once you finish your Code Academy course, I'm not sure how long it is, but think about, how to actually take this real world experience. Do I want to go and take on some projects and things like that? Do some of your own, something you're passionate about. So the two projects I showed, people were passionate about hiking and other things, and they took their React skills and built some things like that. I think that's going to be the ultimate test, is build something of your own and see how much of that actually sunk in.
Makes sense. Okay, so, and I think what are the benefits to those kind of boot camps and stuff? Like you mentioned General Assembly, Coder Academy, and those kinds of things. They have defined syllabus. They kind of explain what they've been doing. For folks like us that are hiring, like, we kind of have a look at that and we go, oh, okay, like tick, 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 tick. We understand what you've looked at before. That's already helpful. It's kind of a bit of a pre-screening thing. Any of those kind of structural things kind of help us understand where you've come from. And they're really useful to start the conversation. And really, if you feel it's been valuable, if you think you've been learning a lot out of that, that's been a great way to then absorb that knowledge. People can be self-directed. They can go through bootcamp. They can be doing it through university. They can go through TAFE, and there's 1,000 different ways to learn how to code these days. So, whatever, if it worked for you, then, folks like us are going to be supportive. So I think that's the bottom line.
And I think the other thing to that is, as I said, the first pre-screen is more LinkedIn, CV, and GitHub. So if you didn't go to the Code Academy, General Assembly, and I just used them as an example because that's a place where, as a quote unquote happy ground for us. But it's if there was a job and you applied and you didn't go through Junior Assembly, I wouldn't differentiate. What I'd be looking is, as I said, would be things like your GitHub projects, your code qualities, and then I'd be really trying to. If you pass those initial tests, I'll be getting you into the interview, and the culture fit will probably speak louder than which college you came from. I think. And you might have learned it by yourself. You might have learned it through a professional university. So I did a computer science degree in university about 10 years ago. So it's relevant, but it's not. People are much more interested in that culture fit. So I don't think there's any disadvantage in choosing one over the other. And actually, find something that works for you, because if you learn and you actually understand it and you can articulate it, that's much more important than getting a badge. So you might decide, I'm going to try it this way, or it could be Coursera or with Eduonics, or any of those other guys. You might decide, oh, that may get me a better thing, and you just hate that course style and you actually never learn anything. That's actually worse to do. So if you're succeeding, learning where you're learning, then focus on your next phase, which is how to demonstrate this knowledge.
Alison's probably rightly corrected me here that I think that Marcella means that the Code Academy website rather than the Coder Academy bootcamp. Yeah. So this is the Code Academy path that you can go through there and do all the training online. Would that give good skills as a front-end developer?
Once again, it's you learn. So I do plenty of Udemy courses. If I do a Udemy course and I can't actually, so most recently I've been learning about PyTest and testing frameworks. If I can't write a PyTest, that's the thing that my company is getting me trained. It's the same thing here, right? So go and learn it and then do a couple of projects. And if you've got it. If you haven't learned it, try a different way. As I said, I don't believe that going to TAFE or anything gives you a particular advantage. Some people just do really well at TAFE because they like the environment and that's what they want to do. So just choose something that works for you, but focus on what you get out of it, because I don't think that we're at the stage now where people get on credits, a number of people you see, that's Coursera course in machine learning, and I'm going, yeah, I did a machine learning course off Udemy and we're probably in the same level. The courses, it really outcomes, I think, is what you want to focus on rather than the bits of paper. And it's good to include things you've done, but at the same time, just because you do a course doesn't necessarily mean that you come out and you can actually do the work that we're potentially hiring you to do. And projects and attitude and culture fit show that to us much more than which online classroom or remote learning solution choose to use.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to have some empathy for the employer perspective then too, because they are trying to understand how you will apply that knowledge and can you apply it, because that's what you're doing day to day. It's application of that knowledge. So if you can demonstrate that, hey, I learned it from somewhere, one of those different avenues, and now I can apply it. This is the way forward. That's the best way to success, really. You had a question in here. Are you folks looking to bring on more juniors in the future?
Probably not this year, realistically, because it's going to be October. I think we're starting to ramp down. But yes, the longer term plan, based on our quote unquote success, I think some of our juniors will be mid-tier developers before long. And as we grow, we'll probably bring on more people. I think we're growing overall. We're negotiating some big contracts at the moment. So we'll definitely go through the path again. I see a lot of value of having people in as juniors and going to the top. But once again, I can't predict the future. But yeah, we will be probably next year. Realistically, be next year, I think, because we just don't have the capacity at the moment. We've got 3 new people. We're working through finalizing the year, and with all the stuff that's been happening in COVID, I think everybody's going to take a bit of a break and regroup next year in February. Generally the way I, we usually go through LinkedIn and other things first. So either follow the company, if you're interested in coming work for us, follow the company. So we usually post things on our company thing, or just follow one of the guys in the company. As I said, generally word of mouth is best for us. So if we're looking for junior developers, we'll be noisy about it. But if it doesn't work, then we'll go and find some other alternative.
Yeah, absolutely. We got one from Hay here, who was saying that they were a C and C++ software engineer before, and they're interested in asking which way is better to shift into being a web developer, self-taught or attending training.
That talks to the same thing as we were talking about, which course I don't focus on which one, focus on which one's going to help you learn. So the first thing as a C++ developer that I would say is probably choose whether you want to focus on back end and front end, choose your learning style, then focus on the projects. If you're going to go and be a back end engineer, then do some back end projects, whether it's using other people's APIs or writing your own APIs. But I definitely think that you can't make that call. Once again, it's you as a person. Once you come out of that training, what I'm interested in is, can you apply that training? Can you, having done that training, solve problems that I have today? And can you, you mentioned the T thing, can we expand you, and can we, will you be a good part of the team? How you did the training is fairly relevant, and it will probably become more relevant, really, I think, with the COVID thing. And a lot of universities are all online now, so it just comes down to how you learn.
That's it. Absolutely. Last question. Any tips on how to find a remote job within Australia, like Search 365?
Yeah, it's hard. So one of the frustrations I had was, and to be honest, when you posted things on LinkedIn, I thought we would have had lots of bites. So there are, in Australia, I can't remember what the names are, but there are several organizations in Australia that specialize in junior developers. One of them is Sydney-based, that basically is kind of like a job marketplace, and they're specifically oriented for employers looking for junior developers. So that's a quick way. Seek is okay sometimes, but I find Seek, like, the challenge is with the junior developers, and this is not a go at any junior developers, but as a recruiter, you're trying to maximize, as a professional recruiter, you're trying to maximize revenue, right? We're not a professional recruiter, so we could spend a bit more time, but if you could sell a bunch of senior, and this is where the competition comes in, if you can sell a bunch of senior developers, you get higher commissions and everything else. Junior developers take a little bit more work. So I would say find those sites. And the other thing is just build your connection framework, because a lot of the times people will kind of reach out and go, hey, anybody want to do it? And find those little side gigs, find those people who want to do the website updates. I actually don't have an answer. The best thing I've seen to an answer, and I wish I remembered what the name was, but there's a guy in Sydney who's basically set up a marketplace specifically for juniors. He writes weekly, I think bi-weekly, tips and trips for junior developers, and his job board, I might get and stick at the end of the PowerPoint. His job board is specifically for juniors. So if you can find something like that, I know there are people out there specializing in career coaching as well, professional development, career coaching. So that could be a worthwhile investment as well. But try to get that network going. That's the only thing I could say. Or swap the places that you're looking at, because, I was loath to put things on Seek. And the reason why was that there's the commissions, but also the other thing is that you just get inundated with things. So my personal preference was to be very, very, very laser focused on 2 to 4 candidates. And then know that as soon as, for example, for experience, as soon as you say junior role, everything, your inbox starts very quickly filling up. So I was looking for kind of a connection or reference. As I said, just build that network and just make friends with some recruiters. Sometimes recruiters, will go, hey, we're not going to do that job, but we know somebody that you can talk to.
Yeah.
It's a hard one to answer, because I felt the frustration. Yeah, I felt the frustration from the other end. I was kind of going, juniors, got some soft, got some candy. And I was quite surprised. So, I think the frustration's from both ends, and hopefully maybe there's an opportunity there for people to do those connects and stuff like that. But as I said in the PowerPoint, you're not the only ones who find it frustrating. I found it frustrating as well. So yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think there's some places like Remotive and like Remote Co or something. There's a whole bunch of those different kind of things popping up, especially now that remote is on everyone's lips. So hopefully that helps. And I'm not sure, like you said, you know, we can post those slides out on the GitHub issues there as well, and make sure that, you know, any of those links are relevantly included. All good. All right, so we've gone an hour over time with Q&A, which is, I think, worthwhile. You know, we don't have a second speaker here, so we've just decided to go and create a brand new extra section, which is all about, you know, getting into the industry. So I think that worked out really well. So thank you very much. You know, virtual meetup clap. Thank you so much for your talk and all of the Q&A. I think everyone got a blast out of that. There was a heaps of thank yous on the YouTube chat as well. So thank you very much. Very humbled for your time. And cool. I think that kind of brings us to the final slide and my wrap up. I'll just share this again. So that's, I mean, most of you found the Slido, but thanks very much to everyone there. I got a whole bunch of, I got at least 4 entries into the Wallaby.js license. If folks didn't immediately see that one, I asked the question, what are some good questions to ask when you're given the opportunity in interview? So you could pretty much take those straight off his slides, but I assume that you've been listening very intently and you knew exactly what to say. So that was right there for everyone. So I'm going to leave that open. Make sure that everyone can get in there. Feel free to get in touch with me at any time if you want to be able to, you want to put up a talk, want to give us some of your experience. You've discovered a cool library, a cool framework. So Webpack 5 is out now. Anyone want to go and try that, convert their existing project and see how well that worked? Give a talk about that. You know, there's a ton of things going on in our industry, in our space. It's a fantastic time to be able to come and present. So do reach out, do get in touch, hit me up on any of the email communication or methods like Twitter or our GitHub issues or anything at all, and I'll be around. Thanks very much, everyone, and thanks to our speakers, and good night. Have a great night.